Welcome, everyone, to episode 172 of Staggered Stance, formerly known as the Nick and Matt Show. Josh, Matt, how are we doing today? It's a beautiful day to be on Staggered Stance.
I don't know where you are. Last night, about 9 p.m., I was snowblowing 16 inches of snow that had just dumped on our portion of New England. I am now in Chicago, expecting an inch or two tonight, which is nothing, but I'm on business. Josh, how are you doing?
Good, and I'm at home on business. Yeah, plenty of snow here in New Hampshire also, and snow blowed the first run, and then later in the day went out for the second one, and I think a belt blew out on my snowblower, which means I finished the snow by shovel, and then my kids said, "Can you make a big igloo in the front yard?" And so I had to shovel even more. But yeah, it's great. Goodness. It's great.
So the snow blowing thing, for those who don't have snow, I don't know if you're listening in Florida or our portions of Australia. We know you're out there too, like wherever you are, that you don't get snow. I don't know how to explain when the snowblower doesn't function mid snowblow. It's worse than having to shovel from the beginning, almost, because you're like, now I've got something broken to repair in the middle of doing work. So that's unfortunate. You think it broke or it's just loose? You don't know. You haven't opened it.
When you smell like a burning belt, I don't know what's wrong.
It could be. It sounds like it might be loose. Maybe it's loose and just needs to be tightened. But anyways, so I'm out in Chicago, but that's not too far to enjoy Disc Golf 978. Disc Golf 978 is presenting episode sponsor for tonight and this whole year. So get ready. We love 978. In fact, if you use that code over at their website, Disc Golf 978, you type in the code We Love 978. When you check out, you get 5% off your order, which doesn't sound like a lot, but does two things. One, it gets you 5% off. Two, it lets them know that we're sending people there, which we really believe in them and we want you to go there. And also, we love 978. So let me think here. What was I going to say on this? Because there's so much.
Let me expound on that, Matt. So 978, all their products, all their discs are at the minimum advertised pricing.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. You read my mind.
That means it could be 15% off from other online stores, but since they're already at the lowest, that extra 5% off that's a lot. So they got the MAP on all their discs and same day shipping pretty much, and free shipping over $25. So basically one disc.
Well, I'm glad you read my mind on that, because that's what I was trying to set up. I was going to go 5% off, which doesn't sound like a lot. And that's where I was going to go. And then I got sidetracked. Which they have the lowest possible. And that was your point, Ben. It's where I'm going to purchase my disc forever, which is awesome. And free shipping on orders over $25. Get yourself 2 discs and you pay for 2 discs pretty much. Like, that's how it works out. They also have something that I want to shout out. And we're going to try to share something new with you every single time. But first of all, Scott and Melissa over there are awesome. Marky Chap, who you see in Simon's videos fairly often, he works there. Disc Golf 978, you want to check out. They sponsor Casey White, but they have something called a 14-day disc swap program. And I want to say they were some of the first. I know that others are doing this, or I've heard of similar programs. But this 14-day disc swap program that applies to new and used discs, you have 14 days to try a disc. If you don't like it, you can bring it back, swap it out for one of equal or lesser value. Now, if you're far away from the Northeast where their brick and mortar is, you can still do this 14-day disc swap program. You're just going to be probably on the hook for the shipping. So it is what it is. I mean, that would be a lose situation for them fully. But if you feel like, hey, maybe it's worth risking it, and you want to pay for shipping if you didn't like it, you can still do that program yourself. We're going to talk about more things that they do, including the DTF heat print stuff, custom artwork for your apparel. Check it out. They'll send it to you. And there's no minimums. There's no setup fees, all that kind of stuff. It's incredible. So Disc Golf 978, we thank them for their support very much. Go visit them and get... Josh, you were looking last week at their website and you saw some really cool discs that maybe aren't for sale other places. I think people need to peruse the whole website.
Yeah, peruse it. In a website, right? Check this out. I'm wearing my Statmando hat, which means it's all about the numbers. And you know how many hours a day Disc Golf 978's website is open? 24 hours a day. And Ben, get a kick out of this. If you add the numbers 9, 7, and 8, you get 24. 24 hours a day. Check them out.
Whoa,
Disc Golf
that's pretty cool.
978.
That is a good little tidbit. I did not know. There you go, Josh.
And
Let's go.
intern Ben had a challenge for a while to become 978 rated because he was 897 rated or something, right?
Yeah, I started last year at 879 rated.
879.
Now I'm 927 rated, so I'm almost at 978.
I have to renew my membership. I might be 879. We'll see.
Well, thank you, Disc Golf 970.
Thank you.
Hey, we're getting. I don't know if we can fix it with remote, but we're getting live ads again. Just FYI.
Oh, Ben, it's the same thing that I did last week. In the top bar of YouTube on the right, you should be able to pause or go back into the
delay ads.
That, or you can go back into the edit settings for YouTube, that video, right? Like in YouTube there, you can hit edit again and then just go find that and turn it off. I don't get why that's happening. We're gonna have to look at it, but
yeah, sorry guys.
All right. Quick logo and show update review. So you notice Ben started this off Staggered Stance. You see a little bit of the brand update. We're not fully there, but it is a little bit fresh. It's new. It's changed. People have been reacting this week to the logo, to the icon, to the variations of the logo. For the most part, really positive response. We appreciate that support. For those that are shocked, the shock value of what they're seeing, being so used to 4 years of something else, like, we get it. We were there as well. So you'll see our icon in most places, which you can see on the YouTube video here, which is in between the word Staggered and Stance. That's what we're going to call our icon. You'll see that in social media most places. Our actual logo itself has the wording around it, Staggered Stance, and it says a Disc Golf Talk Show, which tells you just a little bit about it. And then you'll see, like in our intro starting, and we made a post today, there's a version with headphones surrounding the full logo. So why do we have all these? Well, it comes down to branding and how we're going to use them different places. You can see them on hats, shirts, the way that the branding itself gets used will look different in different scenarios, but the headphone version is for our podcast. In most scenarios, like it'll be our podcast artwork and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Staggered Stance. What's with the white squiggly line? The people, a lot of people get it. Some people weren't so sure. It's 2 S's tilted in a staggered way.
You gotta tilt a little bit.
Yeah, 2 S's on there, kind of connected together. If you turn your head to the right, everybody. And it also happens to form the footprints of a staggered stance, if you will, too. It's that
of Chris Clemens, actually.
And yeah, lefty. We're throwing the lefty some love here, honestly. But then this was something I had thought of in hindsight as we were developing it. But with the headphone version, it kind of communicates a little bit of a voice audio wave. So you get a little bit of everything with that, some of it unintentional, but Staggered Stance, everybody. So that's your quick update there. We'll be coming out with apparel, hats, ways to support us and rep a newly branded show.
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. Let's move into some talk here. Right into it.
Hey, and because people asked, new branded show, new roles, new people joining, but Nick is still part of the show.
Where's Nick? Good call.
Yeah.
Because people are asking, and no, I've not replaced Nick. I could never do that.
No.
Yeah. Good call. I will say, as part of this update for everyone listening and hanging out, Nick and I started this 4 years ago. By the way, Josh, was it you that somebody sent it to us? Smashbox, the fun rivalry and friendship of Smashbox. They gave us 6 minutes talking about our rebrand, which was epic. Thank you, Terry and Johnny.
And they understood it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to listen to them process through it. I think that's so funny. I'll send them a text sometimes and be like, "You're cracking me up, guys." But yeah, Nick's not being replaced. I think what you're going to get a little different here is the possibility that every show you might have one of us missing, not present, and that's going to be the beauty of, honestly, the strengths that each of us bring. So Nick's busy. I think I can't speak to all of it, but he mentioned last week Olympus and what he's got going on down there. I think, honestly, it's a lot of maybe even Pro Tour meeting stuff tonight. So there's that. And then Evan Kearns, Statmando.
Oh my, it's so sad.
He will be rejoining the show
Yeah.
officially this coming week, unless something comes up. But like he'll be rejoining, and it'll be an epic week for so many reasons. I'll just say that. Stay tuned, everybody. Next week will be epic, no matter how you slice it. So let's go into some talk here. Speaking of epic, we had Gannon Burr a week ago announce that he's leaving Prodigy, which we knew. I quote, air quotes, if you're just listening, we knew. And then today, a few hours ago, Eagle McMahon. Do I need to say any more about Eagle? We all know who he is and who he played for. Eagle McMahon announced, more or less, it's true, I'm leaving Discmania. That was the announcement. I'm leaving Discmania. No announcement on where he's going. This could be, I'll put it to you guys, this could be the quietest that I've ever heard on speculation where somebody's going. Like, I have my opinion, but I haven't heard anything with clarity. And that's more rare. We have a lot of people that often give us inside scoops, and I have not heard that. Now, I could be out of the loop on this one, which is fine. My guess still, as crazy as it might be, my guess is still it's Innova or MVP. Those are the two that I feel, but I would not be surprised if it's anybody. That's how kind of in the dark I am here. You guys have any feelings on that and your reaction to Eagle announcing his departure?
Yeah, well, I think the Eagle announcement, it was pretty obvious. Just like how I was saying Discmania was operating with releasing all of his stuff. It seemed to have been that way. As for where he's going, normally media guys like us pretty much know where a majority of people are going before it's announced, whether it's like a few days or a week. A majority. This Eagle McMahon announcement and where he's going is, since I've been in disc golf, the best kept secret I have seen. I have zero idea where he's going. There hasn't been an inkling. There hasn't been like proof. It's been all speculation, and shout out to Eagle and whoever is signing him, because y'all did it right by keeping it a secret, and it hasn't been leaked to the general population. So congrats on that.
Ben, when you say you don't have an idea, let's be clear. You and me off air place fun bets back and forth on where we think he's going based off of our sources.
Yeah.
But our sources are disagreeing, and it's just making us be like, what? So like, that's to Ben's point, is like, there's nothing that's like 90% leaning one way at this point. At least that's not how I know about it at all. So Josh, what do you think? Reactions?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure, and maybe we will, I want to come back and talk a little bit about, Eagle, his history, Discmania, kind of the way he's approached even the announcement. But while we're talking about where he may be going, I don't have any real informed guesses. I may have educated guesses, but I'm curious even to the two of you, like, so what are the leading candidates? So I've heard Innova and MVP. Does that mean we're saying he can't go to, obviously I know we can't say he can't, but Prodigy, Dynamic Discs, Latitude 64, some other disc manufacturer, Infinite. Are we saying all those are like off the table?
That's the most popular guesses, in my opinion.
And it could be of just guesses. First of all, I've said it forever, where there's smoke, there's fire. So the smoke of him possibly leaving was very accurate. Like, I'm going to, in the future, if I ever hear a rumor someone's leaving, it's just, I'm going to say it's happening from now on. But when it comes to can he or where will he? He said he would be doing himself a disservice in his video. I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't take the offer. So it's money. I don't mean like it's only money why he's leaving, because offers can be all inclusive outside of money. But you have to believe money's a large mover here for him. And you go to who has that. Now, probably almost every manufacturer, if they clean house enough, could do that. But Innova could do that easily. They could do that. I think Innova, MVP, Discraft could do that the most. Obviously, they're the biggest.
Yeah.
But I don't see it. Do you see him going to Discraft?
No, I personally don't. I couldn't see it. Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense for his brand, and it would make sense for Discraft because they just added another star player. But for him himself, it would seem too oversaturated, and it just doesn't seem like an Eagle brand, in my opinion. Discraft.
Here's what I find intriguing, and this is all speculation. Maybe I'm even misinformed. You two can correct me. I'm sure the comments will. Is everybody can change. When I say everybody, even manufacturers can change. But Eagle, one of the things he has going for him is personality, performance, likability, honesty, meaning he's made mistakes, he's acknowledged them. He's matured a lot over the last 9 years, like visibly go back and watch his vlogs on where he's like come, just like everything from how he approaches the game. And so what I'm basically talking about here is he has a brand, right? And Discmania complemented that and vice versa. So like an individual brand to me is very important to Eagle, and it should be, because that's like what he has beyond obviously winning on the course, right? But everything else around that is considered his personal brand. I have never seen that I can recall. So if you see me racking my brain as I sit here saying this, that Innova has ever had somebody that the person was the brand. I've just never seen them like buy into that. Now, sure, you've got discs and, names on discs, and obviously some of the best players that ever play the game have played on Innova. It's not about any of that, but have you ever seen them be like, we're going to produce a line for this player? They've got their own series. I mean, Paul Macbeth left Innova, and I think a big part of it was because they didn't do that. And there were other issues there as well. But Simon goes to MVP, and he gets a brand, right? I mean, it's stamped with, the company MVP, but he gets a brand. And so I would just, everything else says, it sounds great. He can throw the discs, naturally be perfect. Innova's big enough. And so here's my real comment. I'm not saying he can't go to Innova, but I'm saying for him to go to Innova, I think Innova would have to actually adapt and uniquely cater to his needs in a way they haven't done before. And that would be intriguing to me, to see Innova kind of change the way it's approached the game historically.
Those are great points. And if you asked me to comment on Innova's history, everything you said is accurate. And other things that I have heard in conversation with people close to Innova movers and shakers says that Innova doesn't, and I don't want to speak openly about certain people who are running industry over there. They don't, we know this. It doesn't seem like they really care about the big names. Now, you can say, but look, Calvin, the biggest name of the year just about. But we don't know what his deal is. But he's a player. He's not a brand.
So, no, that's the difference. Calvin's amazing, right? But like he's not a brand like Eagle or Simon or Paul or some of the other big splashy names at the top of our game.
There's a possibility of investing in what they believe is the future of Eagle. But that's I think that is a little bit outside of their norm. If he says I can't turn down this offer, it would be more incredible to hear that Innova offered $1 million contract. It would just be incredible. And this is the first time I even mentioned dollars, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Even heard dollars.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's easy to throw the million just because that's been tossed around. That kind of seems like the threshold in our game, which I think that threshold is probably lowered in the last year or two.
I agree.
But like, again, I'm not saying he can't go to Innova. I'm saying if he does, that will be the intriguing thing to me to see how they manage the brand, because Eagle's brand is worth more collectively. Well, this is actually, I guess I shouldn't say, it may be worth more than $1 million cash payment. So I hope Eagle's and I think he is thinking about his over the big picture, what his brand and his reputation is. Because you can go somewhere and collect a couple years of $1 million paycheck and your brand just kind of fades into the recesses of everybody's mind. And then you're the player who played in the early, 2020s. And sure, you pocketed $5 million over 5 years. Or do you want to be the name that's like in perpetuity, like your brand was cemented for 2 decades? I'm sure he's thinking about that, but that's what I would encourage the player. And hopefully you can do that with Innova, but you could do it with MVP or maybe somewhere else will surprise us.
Ben, do you read anything into the Simon video with the photoshopped discs overlaid on his stack? Like, does that come into this conversation at all?
Were
For
those
like,
photoshopped? I thought they were real.
well, the discs that were in his stack were real, but he had Simon. We could just text him and ask him, but I'm not going to say this publicly. I'm not going to say this publicly, because I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I enjoy speculating on this stuff. But the overlay of a disc was photoshopped onto his video so that you couldn't see a disc below it. It was a hide a disc type thing, Ben. There was
Oh,
a
okay.
disc that he wasn't showing.
Yeah.
Now, that's not unusual for Simon to have discs that are about to come out that aren't released yet, that are prototypes that are like not talked about. Sometimes it'll happen. He's filming around on the course and a disc is in the shot and he tries to edit it all out as much as he can, but he throws these during his round to get used to them and provide feedback. So sometimes they slip and they make it in. That's very possible. That's all this was. But these were the weird Innova overmolded ones. And so it's very possible too that he was helping a buddy out and he's finding the original, the original PD models and all that kind of stuff. And he's saying, let's overmold these so we can show Eagle how similar they. I don't know. Now this is conspiracy.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I could see MVP or Innova. That's all I'm going to
Yeah.
say. And Josh, you might have persuaded me more to think MVP after that conversation.
So
But I don't see him going to Prodigy, DGA. I
The,
don't.
the
see
only
him
thing,
going to
but I
Latitude.
don't think he's going there too. But one intriguing thing is Eagle. I think the European scene, where can he make a bigger splash? There is also something to consider. So like Latitude 64 and Prodigy, obviously bigger names over there. By the way, I actually don't think that's where he's going. I'm just saying, do you remember even like at the European Open, like the videos, like the vlogs, it's just like the amount of fans for Eagle and Simon in Europe. Like you could just, if you're talking money only, I think you could literally make a killing by promoting his brand even more as a European name and having him come over more often. Like I think that would be like an incredible factor, and it would retain that brand importance that I'm talking about. But I don't guess that's where he's going. I don't know.
I have closing thoughts on this. We're seeing this, like, I hate to say it's an exodus, but again, it's this whole like smoke, there's fire. It's this whole like your perception is reality. Dynamic disc seems to be having this, what we've seen with Innova in years before, where it's like players are leaving, or we saw it with Prodigy. We see it a little bit with DD. I think there's going to be something that happens there. And I don't think we've heard it announced yet. That's my take. So it could be Eagle. Could be Gannon. Could be Nicholas. These are players that have announced now that they're leaving that have not announced where they're going yet. And there's probably others.
There, and I know then you get to the second tier, but still, you never know. Some company could be making a bet, like somebody like an Alden Harris.
True, Alden Harris. Thank you.
Right, and obviously his name is not as big as the first three you mentioned, but like he had a good year last year, and you just don't know, right? Who's trying to make moves? I still get a kick out of I think some players intentionally dropping Easter eggs or hints in different ways, but then because the hype train gets so crazy on that, even like innocent things out there take a life of their own, which I think is fun. Like go look at Alden Harris's posts and scroll through like the pictures and like. Of course, Prodigy's all throughout them, but then there's one where like the Discmania sign on the tee box is just so clearly highlighted. So it's just like, remember last week I said, it's interesting to me to have real speculation based on business and brand and the future of the sport, but I also have just as much fun riding the hype train on what could every little thing mean. It's pretty funny.
Well, one of the things the comments keep saying about Eagle, and I don't know if we've mentioned, is they keep saying that Eagle's going to take over their Streamline line for MVP. So that's a huge conspiracy where it would make sense. And that's why I think Innova or MVP makes sense, because I think that Streamline thing makes sense. But I also think Innova's Innova. It's pretty sure still the number one disc golf company in the world, like volume-wise for discs, and they can give them a pretty paycheck. So he didn't mention in the video that if he turned down the offer, he'd be dumb. the MVP did make a lot of money this year because of Simon signing. I couldn't imagine they made all that money back. Not the 10 million, maybe they made his yearly contract back.
Where are you getting these numbers from, Ben? We're just all counting on them being accurate, aren't we?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. I forgot those numbers weren't official, but that's the alleged.
Yeah, that's the number that gets around.
Yeah.
It's funny. We all just kind of accept it now.
Yeah.
But I want to go back further than that,
Okay.
Ben. When James Conrad threw in the holy shot.
Oh, they made a killing with that too.
You can look this all up. They made so much money off of that, and I don't think they listed exact numbers, but they went from like one machine. I'm being very simple here with my wording, but from like one machine to like 10 machines, which cost a load because of how many discs they were selling, which then leads to, in your mind, well, now they lined up Simon. It tells me with Simon coming on, they didn't need to make that money. Well, again, they're probably laughing if they're listening to this. Me saying they don't have to make that money back. But I'm simplifying this all down to say, like, they made all that money where they are willing to go ahead and make this business decision to say, like, we know or we have a strong feeling it's going to be there. And then so when Simon comes, whatever they make is like kind of on top of that, which says, yeah, we could line somebody else up. So I think that's a cool idea too, to the chat. And I don't have the chat pulled up here, so I appreciate that.
Like, I just know personally, I have connections with a lot of different pro shops. Even Josh from Overthrow was saying a lot of pro shops are saying they can't even keep MVP on their shelves. So they made a splash this year. They went from a kind of like a more trendier company to like, wow, these discs are legit. And I think they have the money to afford Eagle, but I think Innova also makes sense. So I don't know. I'm on the fence.
How about Paul Kranz, Rookie of the Year for the PDGA?
That's
he announced he left Discmania and that he went to MVP.
Yep.
If I go to Disc Golf 978 and punch in MVP, you said it's hard to keep them on the shelves. I bet you they got some. But I'm talking a disc golf podcast right now. So
yeah, they
I was just going to peruse through. I was just going to find some sweet
these
MVP
things there. Like, if you're Eagle and you go to MVP, you want to make sure they can put discs on the shelf, right? So like it's into all of these things. Most of these players, I think at this point in the game, most of the top players who are considering big deals are hopefully starting to get pretty sophisticated with their analysis of the deals. Right? Like, I think there's an era in disc golf where it's kind of like the flat, right? Everybody's just trying to tour and make it, and there's payments and there's certain tiers, and that was well and good. But now it's like, yeah, are you going to be able to print enough discs? Which disc do I get? What's my influence? What's my brand? What rights do I own to trademarks and copyrights? What do you own? What's the payments? What's the bonus structure? Way more complex and nuanced, which is a good thing for the players. And so I say that comment in passing, but the point is like, you got to go somewhere that can also handle his brand.
And we really are dissecting this fully just because Eagle has officially announced it. That's why we're talking about it. I know we talked
like 6 hours ago. So
yeah, I know we kind of talked this type of sponsorship talk the whole off season, but like it's relevant to right now because of Eagle. But like, I feel like also House of Discs is a thing, right? That like has become more new to the disc golf world. And people are like, what is that? It's the investors that purchased Latitude and Discmania and Dynamic Discs and Westside. Like, I don't see Eagle going to that. Although in the past, I feel like Eagle was so close to going to Dynamic Discs. I don't think that was ever public, and it's still my speculation. But I honestly think, this is, again, my speculation, that he was so close to literally signing on a contract with DD years ago, and it didn't happen. Could he be going back? Possibly. But this is why I'm saying I don't think so. Because of Discmania is in House of Disc. I don't see him just shuffling inside
it's a lateral
of the
move.
ownership.
Yeah.
Because the ownership is so involved now in a lot of ways that, I don't see him just moving within. So I don't know. Let's kind of move on from that unless you have any closing thoughts.
Yeah,
on
let's
MVP
move on.
or
We can move on.
I want to move on about speculation of where they're going. But maybe we just talk a minute. Like, I mentioned it in passing, but like,
go ahead and share.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, 9 years with Discmania for somebody. How old is he? 25, I think.
Could be 25, 26. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, okay. So go back, 9 years from 25 years old, right? And so you're 16, which is, young, and 16 to 25 is pretty much an important part, like in your growth as a person, right? Kind of maturing out of your teens into an adult, figuring out how to make a career of this disc golf thing, the sport growing, him growing. I already mentioned this, but I think truly, if you go back and watch his trajectory as a player, do you remember when he was so good, but he just couldn't win? Remember like the Australian Open, like right down to anything, he just couldn't win. That was the thing about Eagle. Just couldn't finish. Eventually got some under his belt and has kind of broken out of that. Again, maturity, just the way he talks about the sport on the course. He's had mistakes, right? Remember breaking the hand, slamming the ground. So, I mean, he has just like had a lot of growth while he's there. And I think you can see in his announcement video, just kind of the true thank you in the way he's leaving. How I think that'll probably always have a soft place in his heart. And even though it's all business, which is evidenced by the fact that he's leaving, there is sometimes more than just business. Business is the primary driver, but it's great to kind of see that attachment, that thankfulness, both from the sponsor and the player. I think it's a healthy way to transition. We've seen non-healthy ways, I think, i.e. Gannon and Prodigy, although at the end, I think they both had a lot of respect for the way they handled the end of the contract. But I just think, congrats to Eagle with a nine solid years with the manufacturer and the way he's kind of handling this announcement. Kudos to him. I'm sure he's going to take home a great deal wherever it ends up being, right? Regardless of our guesses.
If it's to MVP, I bet you we don't hear the dollars, but just because it wasn't announced with Simon, unless someone wants to leak it. And quite frankly,
if it's with Innova, we're not going to hear the dollars. So like, I don't know if we hear the dollars anywhere anymore for a while.
Can we just
I don't know.
Can we just randomly mention how smart James Conrad was to going to MVP? Like, what a move by him. I mean, his brand, I know he hit the holy shot, but his brand ever since moving there has, in my opinion, gone through the roof, where he was the main guy for a while. And now that Simon's there, he is going to keep bringing them all up to the top.
Yeah. Well, what a move. I mean, yes, I agree. What a move by MVP.
Yeah. Same thing. But yeah.
Exactly. I understand. But like, that's like, and Ryan made a comment. He's like, the holy shot paid for Simon and Simon paid for Eagle. So who's Eagle going to pay for, like, well, that's the growth of a company. And we're seeing the growth of a company, right. We're interpreting that or measuring that by the size of the names that they sponsor. Obviously, at the end of the day, they measure it in the bottom line in their business, and I'm sure both are looking good.
Yeah, and I don't want to overlook Silva Saarinen, FPO player, joint MVP. MVP, if you look back at the development of them, whether they struck lightning with everything perfect and James throwing in, like, I don't know, but where they're at now, lining up lots of great players. They used to be kind of I hate to say it, and it's going to come off rough, but like Raven was like one of their headliners. Sarah Hokum. Granted, Sarah Hokum has a history, a legacy, and she's a legend of the sport. And she could beat up on me any given round. But like as their headliner, it's great that they had her, but like a headliner FPO player. And I'm trying to think even of the other Justin Bilodeau. Like there was like Matt Dollar. Like it was these names that you're like were willing to play with their plastic because they liked it. And MVP was willing to only invest a certain amount because they only had one machine. But like now that they had this, whether like I said, it's lightning or not, the ability to start making these moves, maybe a little bit of risk, but they're playing the numbers right. And now they're starting to bring in these other players, like I said. And if it happens to be Eagle, they have now become, I mean, Simon's great. Great as everyone loves him. He throws discs really cool. And he can win any given event. But like if you start adding lineup, they're taking their chances, let's say on Paul Kranz, rookie of the year for the PDGA, good friend of ours. I play on a team with him. Actually, this Saturday I'll be playing up there with him. My point is that's really cool. So there's storylines either way. And if he goes to Innova, Josh, it's historic in some ways because
then I want to see how that plays out. Yeah, I want to see how it plays out.
So there you go. I asked this in a group chat earlier. The answer is pretty unanimous, although I'm interested in what the chat thinks. Even though I can't see the chat, Ben can.
Yeah.
Which was the bigger announcement? The bigger announcement. I'm not going to give any like details of what I mean by that, but just the bigger announcement. Was it Eagle saying I'm leaving Discmania? Or was it Gannon saying I'm leaving Prodigy? Some of you are going to answer by surprise factor. That can be part of it. But let's just say, so answer that question, I guess. Josh,
So,
you said.
Do you say, so what's a bigger, say it again, bigger
Yeah.
surprise?
What was
Bigger
the bigger
story?
news, the bigger announcement?
Yeah. I mean,
And
given the context.
just with that criteria, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah, given the context, it's definitely Eagle for
Ben,
a small list of reasons.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I'll put words in everyone else's mouths and my own. It's Eagles, the bigger move. But then let's play a little bit of like change the history a little bit. If it's a big if, but Gannon didn't have the falling out, the legal issues, and he was playing the way he was this last year, which was really great. And we thought he loved Prodigy. And surprise, again, it says I'm leaving Prodigy with that storyline. Does it change anything for you? I know it's hypothetical.
So
does it seem bigger?
I think Eagle, even if that was the case, I think Eagle would remain the bigger news to me, because I view Prodigy as, they're established, but they're a little of a smaller company in my opinion. I think they haven't. I guess Discmania and Prodigy haven't been around that long, but in my opinion, Gannon has been doing so well that he probably would seek after something that pays him the big bucks. Whereas Eagle, Simon just leaves, freeing up a lot of cap space, hypothetical, for Discmania. It's a no-brainer. Like, okay, Eagle, we're gonna offer you what we're gonna offer Simon, and then some, because you're our guy. We have Kyle Klein. We don't want to lose you. You're a guy. Let's give you a lot of money. I know with the whole House of Disc thing, it might be trickier, like finances wise, and how they're getting new plastics and they leaving Innova, but it would make the most sense to me. And Eagle has been on Discmania for, like you said, 9 years, and he's been established with Discmania for that long. We've only known Gannon for about 2 years with Prodigy, so it makes sense that he would leave. But Eagle is definitely more of a shock to me, no matter what.
No matter what. You feel the same, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, in the public eye, I think that's true. I mean, there's some assumptions there, Ben. You think, I mean, you said how long was Gannon with Prodigy, but he grew up as a kid, which is not that long, but like throwing their discs, right? So there's a lot of kind of like history for him ingrained. But at the end of the day, I completely like agree. We all know how good Gannon is and we see the upside, but I'm going to keep coming back to this and saying, and maybe it's beating a dead horse, but I can talk about the business side of disc golf as much as we want. I think comparing the brand, which I know is like a generalized statement. I put quotes around the brand because there's a lot included there, right? But the brand between the two is almost no like comparison yet. Literally a brand is like when you stop and think, what do you think? And Eagle encompasses a whole bunch of things that Discmania has helped build for him over the years, right? The Crush Bros, and again, like see the response when he's over in Europe. Gannon hasn't even went over to Europe. Eagle's vlogs early on, the way Discmania promoted, him and Simon, which really kind of lifted both of their sales. And Gannon has plenty of media stuff, right? He's hilarious on Alden's vlogs, and he's good at disc golf, incredibly good, right? So, like, I'm not saying there's any problem there, but if you compare the brands, now Gannon can grow that, and I think he will. In fact, what's really intriguing to me is I see some comparisons to him and Eagle from years ago.
I was just going to ask you that.
And so, give it like, I mean, he's already incredibly good. That's not what I'm saying, right? But give him like 3 more years of maturing on the road, which maturing means a lot of things on the course and off the course. Like his ceiling could be higher than Eagles. Especially if he stays healthy, because Eagles lost a year or two in here, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying right now, like the brand between the two, like Eagle makes a big splash and Gannon makes a smaller splash. And so that's what I'm comparing it.
Yeah. The only, and there's so many caveats to that. And like, that's the argument about the greatest of all time and all these conversations. But like, Gannon won the U.S. Disc Golf Championship, one of the most sought after, biggest events of your whole career, minus the impact that Worlds has. A lot of players say they would rather USDGC if you set aside like the impact of what it does for your career. The actual winning of the event seems more prestigious to win USDGC. So like he's done that so young. And so there are comparisons between him and Eagle, no doubt. And I see that because he's young. He needs to, I wouldn't say prove himself on the course, but I think what he needs to do is continue to develop his brand. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing, because without spilling all the deets on the deets, what am I, Mr. Hip, with all the details on, I don't know what just happened there. I've never said that before in my life. So,
Mr. Hip,
hey, so my point is like knowing inside scoops, feelings on what he's been making, and we saw the numbers that Prodigy had in their legal suit. Like, hey, we'd offer him this much, and you're like, he's not even making that much. You know what I mean? So it's like he's making. I think he's going to make a lot more. Which what do we know that to do? Besides make you well off, it frees you up and it gives you money to invest into your brand. Not only should the company do that for you, which I think will happen wherever he goes, but because they're going to want to, but also he's going to have that freedom to start doing things. He could, I don't know this for sure, but he could hire a video guy to follow him around on tour. Like, just saying, like, I think we're going to see the brand side develop a lot more with Gannon.
Yep. Yeah. It's just, we don't like, it's easy to forget how young Gannon is.
Right.
Eagle used to be that young, but with the passage of time, I mean, he's 25, and 25 is quite different than 18. I mean, that's a silly statement to like say, but like, it really is everything from on-course, off-course maturity. And Gannon's already showed his performance. But like, just add, if I don't even know what you're going to say, Matt, but if you're going to say he's already so mature in how he thinks about it, then add 5 more years to that, right? It'll be him.
What I was just going to say is I had the privilege and honor of having an 18-year-old stay at my house for the 2 weeks, one before the MVP and one during. And that kid is smart with disc golf. I'm talking like his intelligence level with the competition of disc golf. That's why he wins. He's good, but he's also extremely smart.
Yeah, like, and add some time to that.
Yeah,
that's my like. That's just true in any career or anything. Anybody who's listening, like whatever you're the best at, like there's probably somebody who's been a little bit better, more successful, and a big part of it is they have more time at it. It's just like it's almost always a factor. Obviously, at some point in sports performance, then your body starts to tail off. But you find that sweet spot where the body's still primed and you've had more experience, right, for the head game. Like that's the home run, right? And that's where I think Gannon's, if he sticks with all that, still has that ahead of him. And Eagle still has it ahead of him as well, but he's further into it.
Now, Ben,
yep.
And I say there's all the love in the world for players like you and me. We would focus on our brand from the content and marketing perspective hardcore. Like that's how you and I are going to get through the world. Like if we're trying to make a brand.
Yeah.
But I would argue and say that for these players, like let's go back to Paul McBeth, which came first, his brand or his performance? You could say they grew at the same time, but the reality is like you didn't, besides a signature disc, like as in like his actual signature on and in of a disc, like you didn't have a brand that we could observe, and maybe that was part of the plan, but for quite a while, almost until Discraft. Like you started seeing the new logo, branding, representation, the whole thing, Paul McBeth Foundation, all that stuff starts coming after Paul had established himself as a competitor, and that was his brand. Like he wasn't the guy you'd see going out and partying after rounds. You wouldn't see him, in fact, unless he was competing just about. Like, so my point is, if Gannon can nail that down, I think it's super important, of course. And I think his brand will follow suit. And I think we're all on the same page. I think we're just looking at it from different perspectives.
I've always said this, that the best thing you can do for your brand is win. It's just flat out win. You could be a cardboard box, stale as a cucumber, or I don't even know what I'm saying, but you could be stale, and if you win, you're gonna get fans and you're gonna be liked just because people want to see performance. The second best way, and is the most common way, is to just put yourself out there. I mean, we just saw Anthony Bodanza signed to Infinite Discs. And I'm guessing it's a money contract where Infinite sees that, oh, this kid moves plastic. He has 30,000 subscribers. He's a brand. He's only 970 rated, and no offense to him, wouldn't really do, if he went touring, he wouldn't do that well as of right now. I know that's his goal, but Infinite Disc, he has that brand, which is huge for making money in creating conversions and what a lot of companies are interested in. I see all the time, like these kind of like amateur type of like street teams or underground. What they're looking for now is people that are posting on social media or are heavily in the disc golf community through like tournament director. But you're most likely, the easiest way to grab a fan base is just like putting yourself out there. And that's why we see so many of these disc golfers now creating TikToks and videos and that, because if you can't win, you can still make money by being personable.
Exactly. Good job.
Yeah, it's an intersection of both, right? And there's like, again, I work in the industry of kind of AI, so we use the term algorithm a lot, right? But the algorithm talks about there's multiple inputs, right, that calculate to an output. And there is no one precise way, right, to get to the top of the game from a branding standpoint. But you're correct, Ben. There's a few that are known entities, and winning is one of them, right? That input is going to put you at the top of the game. And if you can win and promote yourself, then you're going to be ahead.
Yes. It's the perfect
storm, perfect combination.
Which is why, like I said, and again, I say this with all love, which is why Ben and I would have to hustle harder than anybody if we wanted to have a name in the sport.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And if you weren't winning, you could still have a name, but your name would be not winning.
It would be different. And I don't want to pick on players right now because like I don't want to do a whole segment on that. But everybody can take a minute to think about the players who are purely on a team because they bring that marketing. Like they're not winners. And I don't mean that offensively, like their mom's like, you're not a winner. I mean that like actually competitively, like they're not winning. So, and they're not placing high. So there is the win. There you go. There's the win for that, for the brand. They can be
although
like,
it's fun for us to start rating people based on what their moms think of them. If their moms think they're a winner or not.
What's with this? Ben says stale as a cardboard
box, stale as a cucumber.
Let me give a caveat. Someone said, I didn't mean winning as in you win one pro tour. I mean like prolific winning, like you're like Max Van what's his name on the F1? Max Verstappen, where it's just like he just prolifically wins, and that's the best thing for your brand. Not like someone said Emerson Keith and Brody Smith, who has more of a brand. Yes, Emerson won, but Brody, obviously, that's why I'm saying if Emerson
was that, I mean, I don't mean that offensively. Was that actually a question in the chat?
Well, they were just saying that who has a better brand, Emerson or Brody.
Maybe they were trying to make that point, right?
Yeah, they were saying, I'm just saying if Emerson won like 5 Pro Tours or 4 within the past year, it'd be a little different story. And
you're not going to touch Brody Smith for a long time as far as brand.
Well, yeah, he's just a content machine. He's a content machine. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's the second best thing you can do.
To catch up to him. To catch up to him would be pretty hard. Like you're gonna have to be, like you said, we already said it. Let's move on. You have to win and you have to be likable. The end. Like, all right. Getting ready here soon to bring in Jesse Weiss, probably another 10 minutes or so, but get ready. We're gonna talk more about this kind of stuff relating to more culmination of the surveys that were responded to by fans regarding manufacturers, plastic companies, all different stuff. We're excited to hear about that. Last time he demonstrated the value of the Nick and Matt show. Remember that? That was awesome. All right.
Are you teeing us up for another topic?
I do have another quick topic. What do you got?
I was just going to say, do you think there's anything intentional about the timing? Like if you're these companies right now, like in past years, we've seen weird things about timing. We've seen things drop before contracts were ended. But now, right, certain companies seem to wait right to the end, and then you have these players waiting. Why are they waiting? Are they waiting for marketing reasons? Are they waiting for contract reasons? If you're sitting here and there's actually multiple names, so I'm not leaving anybody out on purpose. We already mentioned them all, so you can go back and listen if you missed it. But if I'm going to keep talking about Eagle and Gannon, is either one of those companies, presuming they're not the same one, trying to beat each other? Like if Gannon and Eagle announce on the same day, is Gannon's news like it's not lost, but is it like second tier to Eagles? Like I wonder if it's interesting, back like with Ricky's announcement, they had to have the helicopter fly him in. Like, it's one of these companies working on all that right now, like trying to figure it out. Anyway, we don't have to elaborate, but I just think it's interesting to think about. It's January 8th. What are they waiting for?
Well, I think the bigger changes deserve the bigger moment. So to your point, yes, I think that I would hope so. They're trying to make some significant reveal, stand out, and then completion. Knowing what I've known for years now, let's just say the past few years, players are not settled like we think they are. Like, really. I'm not going to say names because they don't need to show that history because they haven't told me I could divulge this stuff. But like maybe right up until and for Eagle, it's possible that right up until this week he hadn't decided. And it was a very okay, I'm deciding now. Discmania is like, we need to know right now or else you're off the team kind of a thing. I'm putting words in people's mouths. My point is like, we don't always know. And so it's very possible that that's the situation too. And so then you have to wait. But some of them, I think they're waiting just because they're big and they want to make a big reveal for it, to your point. So that was a good insight or a good question. Good topic. $2,000 to $3,000 for an all-inclusive 4-day disc golf getaway in Cancun can be yours with the Dave Matthews Band performing on the beach nightly. Powered by Innova. We're not giving this away, but my question to you is, they're getting free advertisement in this. You can go to Cancun.
Dave Matthews Band? Free advertising?
Yeah, so the way that this appears to me is that these resorts will offer opportunities, package deals, and they say Dave Matthews Band is going to be here for these 4 days. And I don't know if it's Innova specifically, but it's powered by Innova. Big Germ's going to be there. Another guy, Chris Shotwell, Chris Brophy. These are Innova players. And they're going to be there, and they're going to do a disc golf tournament every day, disc golf clinic every day, games, Dave Matthews Band every evening, resort in Cancun. Now, again, this is free advertising for them, but I just wanted to bring it up as a topic. What is that worth to the average disc golfer? They realize that most of the packages are sold out, and they're like, hey, the big ones are big, but anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 for 4 days. And I don't think that includes airfare, how you're going to get there. Like, this isn't for the average disc golfer, but for the super fan, I mean, is that cool? They say once in a lifetime. I mean, if it's me and I like Dave Matthews, which I like him good enough, that would be a pretty cool experience if I had the money to drop. But like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you hear that? Does it sound super cool to you guys?
Yeah, I'm not a big. I think it is very cool that I'm hoping the festival people kind of were like, oh, what would be a great package, to offer people at this thing to make them money. I'm hoping it's that and not like Innova reaching out like, oh, we could offer this, because that'd be cool that they're recognizing disc golf as a way to kind of lure more fans to their experience. But I'm not a huge Dave Matthews Band fan, but I do think it's cool if you are. It kind of has to be a perfect storm. If you're a big fan and you really love disc golf, then yeah, it seems like a good package. But it's all the way in Cancun, like you were saying, like it's a lot.
Yeah.
You got to be either a big fan or really rich.
And you're gonna play disc golf on a Jack Nicklaus designed golf course too, because they have like golf packages. Ben, to your point, I actually think this might have been Innova reaching out and planning this. But this is a thing, and Josh, I'll let you comment if you have any interest in commenting. But like, there have been disc golf cruises in the past, so these like, it's interesting. I think mixing disc golf into your vacation. I don't know. I just don't know if I could get my wife to buy into that one. Like, so then I feel like it's got to be for it has to be for the disc golf couple or for the single disc golfer, because to spend that much money, and I'm like, bye, honey, I'm going to go play disc golf tournament, you know? I don't know. Any reactions, Josh, to this? Just a random topic I saw pop up today.
It definitely has a place for some people. And the truth is, that's all it has to have.
Mhm.
What I mean is, it doesn't have to resonate with everybody. It has to resonate with enough people who want to do it. And I think it likely does, because look at the disc golf community, which is diverse, just like a lot of communities. We may not be as diverse as we'd like, but I think there's a music festival scene, vacation, drinking, music, and disc golf, all of which can be had at Cancun. And yeah, that's a lot of money, but it's not outrageous for like
Yeah.
that type of trip that you just stated. And if you live closer to that particular, western part of the country, it's not as hard to get down to Cancun. Honestly, it really isn't that crazy. So, if you're asking me, my life stage, my family, my vacation interests, like, it doesn't resonate with me, but I don't think that's a problem for Innova. I think it's like, oh yeah, they weren't marketing to me in the first place. So I think it's just fine.
It's
Yeah.
cool.
It's
It's a cool thing to
possible.
see. That's all.
Yeah, and exactly. I think the more offerings there are for people, the better, actually. It's possible that the Innova coordinators are like, we would like a free vacation if we can just get 10 people to sign up. Like, we can do this, you know? So, like, I mean, I'm not trying to like slight them, but I'm saying, like, yeah, as long as there's enough people that want to do it, it could be 8 people. I don't know. Maybe it's 12, maybe it's 20. I don't know. But
Well, yeah. Well, if we offer the staggered stance, like,
Hmm.
experience in the future,
Yeah,
and like,
true.
I mean, again, it doesn't actually have to matter to the hundreds of thousands of listeners we have. It only has to matter to like 20 of them.
Good point. Let's do
So,
that. Where should we go?
yeah,
All right.
start working on it.
Drop us a comment where we should go. Um, how about this quick question before we bring in Jesse Weiss? Um, how does Isaac Robinson, Josh, by the way, we're still talking about him years later. If we go back to
Oh, yeah.
Bring
Let's
it
not
up.
bring that up. That's another show, another time, another
That's so
era.
funny. It just happens. I
Mistakes
mean,
were made,
mistakes were made, and here we are. But
Yeah.
world champion later. For anyone who doesn't know, we go back to League Night somewhere on DGN. You can find it. This was one of the first events that Isaac ever showed up at ever. And Josh more or less was like, I think it was, he didn't say lucky, but I don't think we'll hear about him again. Well, here he is. So let me ask this question. How does Isaac feel about missing out on Player of the Year award twice? No Disc Golf Pro Tour, no PDGA. PDGA is points calculation. Disc Golf Pro Tour is largely votes. How do you think Isaac feels? Like, guys, I won 2 like big events. Like, I did well at all of them.
I mean,
and I didn't get it.
of course, I don't know how his actual feelings are, but I think he's just fine
Mhm.
because he had an incredible year. He won the events he wanted to win. And I think in both cases, he's not surprised. One's a numbers calculation, and he just straight up didn't get the numbers. In the other one, I think he would probably be like, I understand why Calvin got it. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't know, but maybe your feelings are a little bit like, ah, man, I was close. Like, so there's got to be some feelings there, but I doubt they feel like, wow, I was done wrong. Like, I can't imagine you would have that feeling.
Let's play a quick game for the future, like future forward thinking, Ben. Does this happen again in the next 5 years in disc golf, where the person who didn't win Worlds or a major gets Player of the Year?
In the next 5 years,
Does this happen again? Does a player like Calvin win Player of the Year again in the next 5 years?
I'd say, yeah. I'd say Yes, if they're consistent enough, like Calvin was. I mean, Calvin was basically finishing. Don't hold me to this,
Consistently not winning. No, I'm kidding.
but he was consistent. He
enough.
was winning, but he was also
Yeah.
consistently like top 5. I don't even. There was an insane streak towards the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But I will
Yeah,
say,
but go ahead.
I will say this caveat. No one's gonna remember Calvin as Player of the Year this year. Everyone's gonna remember. I don't think so.
It stood out enough as like a weird thing in my mind. Not weird that he won it, because I think he deserved it. But it stood out weird enough that I'm like, the guy who won Worlds or Majors or whatever, didn't get
what
it.
I'm trying to get to is 5 years from now, we're gonna remember Isaac Robinson's Worlds and maybe Champions Cup. That still needs to get a little more, I guess, ingrained in history for it to matter more. But no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, Calvin won Player of the Year that year. In my opinion, I think it does. I think what I'm trying to say is I don't think he's phased at all because he won Worlds, and that's gonna be in the history books forever. And Player of the Year is a really cool accolade. But it was kind of like the thing that happened with Ricky and Paul last year, how Ricky was saying like the Player of the Year is the best player, not the world champion. But yeah, we right now remember the world champion and we don't remember Player of the Year. Who was Player of the Year 3 years ago? I don't even.
These awards are getting bigger, though. The argument would be that every year the Pro Tour has been established, it's been getting bigger. So it is hard to remember back towards the beginning. Josh, did you have a comment on this? No?
Nothing. I mean, like plenty. No, nothing to add.
Okay. And then I will just wrap up with this right as we get ready to bring Jesse in. Does getting a PDGA or Disc Golf Pro Tour award mean more if you had to choose, because you can't put yourself in their seat, if you will, but if you had to choose and you could win one or the other, it's kind of tough to ask, but let's go with Player of the Year. Do you want it to be more or less fan, media, tour vote, or do you want it to be points straight up from the PDGA? Which would be your preference, Josh?
I mean, in 2023 or 2024, I want it to be the Pro Tour. I think that's the thing. The Pro Tour is largely why we have a show, why there's disc golf media, why the fans are where they're at. And I know it's backed in the foundations of the PDGA and it has the long history of its own tour, but it's the Pro Tour, like in my opinion.
And how do you feel? Same?
What was the question again? Sorry, I was reading the chat.
It's doing a lot.
Yeah, it's hard managing.
Would you rather Player of the Year from the Pro Tour or the PDGA?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, 100% from the Pro Tour. I think it should be opinions based, but it should be from valid opinions that kind of invest. Like I think media is a good point. I think tour card holders and then I think a small percent should be fan vote, but not enough to sway a ton because I don't know. It's points can be weird. Points, we talk about like ratings and systems and all that, how points can be weird, but I think the overall feel of a season is a lot more important than these hypothetical points that are pretty arbitrary, in my opinion.
Okay. So we have our new, updated look here. It's similar in some ways, fresh in others, staggered stance. So we've never, I don't know, this transition should work the same. It'll probably be our new logo, Ben. But we're going to go ahead and bring in, and I don't know if you have to hit the music. Do you have that? I don't even know if I have that.
Yeah, I think I got it.
All right. So let's go ahead and bring into the show, everybody, Jesse Weiss, writer, author, survey stats extraordinaire, putting them together, giving us the beats. There it is again. 2 times in one night. Yeah, Ben, perfect. Hey, what's up, Jess? Good. Welcome to Staggered Stance. This is going to be one for the record book, fiction, stat or fiction, I think. You are the first official guest ever on the new rebranded Staggered Stance. So write that one down, people. It may come up one day. Jesse Weiss. All right, Jesse, why do we have you back? And that's not a question. I mean, this rhetorical. Like, why are you here, Jesse? But you last were on our show and we were talking about the fandom surveys and how you could find really cool information with what the people submitted as what they're fans of. We talked everything from shoes to disc sales to least favorite people. I don't say people who people voted that was not their favorite player, who their favorite players were, all of that. You have since put together more how fans feel about disc golf manufacturers. That one's a little interesting. Fans' relation to discs, how fans feel about media and commentators. I'm going to kind of let you tell us a few interesting things maybe from each of those. I think people would like to hear what you come up with there. If there's anything that you'd like to start off talking about, the floor is yours.
These articles. So since we last spoke, a few articles came out. So
hold on. Can you hear me, Jesse?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah, he's good. He's good now.
Oh, it was muted?
Yeah.
So
this is why you guys hired me. This is tough being the guy to do this all. This is literally why you guys hired me.
So Ben, obviously we'll just trim that quiet section out because it's going to be quiet for a little bit. But what I'd like to do is give this is for the live show right now. Obviously live gets the real deal. It's raw. We announce things sometimes we unintentionally do, but obviously we heard me intro Jesse. So I'll say it like, again, I'll say the floor is yours. And then Ben, you can kind of just pick up where he starts talking again. So if you didn't feel like that was good, job, Jesse, if you didn't feel like you liked the way that was going, you can start.
Well, I was cursing a lot. So that's what the,
no. So I'll give it to you again as the floor is yours. I think the recap on what you guys did is great. How we got here. I think that was really helpful. I could hear it. So let's go into it. Jesse, the floor is yours.
Hi. So the Fandom survey was just to give you the background on it. Can I start again on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay. Okay. So the Fandom survey was a survey that went out to disc golf fans. We had about 3,040 fans fill out the survey. It takes about 20 minutes to fill it out. So this is a hefty survey, and we're able to get some deep analysis and knowledge on how disc golf fans feel about many different aspects of the game. And we packaged that into so far 5 articles, and there's another article coming out soon. The articles, as you said, they speak about how fans feel about manufacturers and how fans feel about the players themselves. And recently we're going to be, we've released also, since we last spoke, an article about how fans feel about discs and how fans feel about the commentators and media. And soon tomorrow we're going to have an article coming out about how fans feel about the courses. We can go through some of those articles and go over some of the most interesting aspects of those articles in this conversation. But you just spent a long time talking about where Eagle's going to go, where Gannon's going to go. We don't know, we can't predict where they're going to go, but we do have some information on where they might be the best fit with their fans. So this is something I think we discussed on the last time I was on the show. But if it's in our article about disc manufacturers, I don't know if you had a chance to see that matrix that we have at the bottom of the article that shows.
I will say I have looked through, and I'm not going to lie, I've looked at so much information in the last few weeks that it's not like standing out to me. But what I would love for you to do is to point out a few of your favorite things that, I mean, there's so much, it's probably hard to say favorite, but what is it that stood out to you about some of these?
Well, so if we talk about, we asked players, we asked fans who their favorite manufacturer was, and then they also rated the players on a 0 to 10 scale. And we're able to see preference gaps based on which manufacturer was the fan's favorite. So we can see that, I'm looking here right now, with Eagle, with Discmania fans, he had a 1.67 preference gap. So that means on a 0 to 10 scale, Discmania fans are giving Eagle a 1.67 higher than the average fan. And we can look at the scores that fans of other manufacturers gave him to get an idea of where he might be a good fit. For example, Prodigy fans gave him a negative 0.81 off of his average. So he might not be a good fit for Prodigy. Discraft gave him a negative, fans gave him a negative 6.63. So again, not a great fit there. But then you've got MVP is a 0.11. So that's barely over the average. Latitude 64 is a 0.04, again, barely over the average. So that gives you an idea. Innova is a negative 0.24, so in the negative. Those numbers are just marginally above average, so they shouldn't read into those too much. But that kind of gives you an idea that where might be the best fit for Eagle.
Okay. So it took me in my brain just a little bit to catch up with how you were starting that. But I love it because what I enjoy the most about what you do is look at how data relates to itself. So I will say it in the way that I understood it. A player who said Discmania was their favorite manufacturer, you can now look at and say all the people who said Discmania was their favorite, like how did they rate the players as their favorite? And it appears that in the case of like Eagle McMahon, they gave, because Eagle's Discmania, presumably, they preferred him as their favorite player a little bit more, or at least 1 point more, 1.5 points more than anybody else, which seems pretty obvious. I'm going to say it seems obvious. If you're a favorite of a plastic type, you're going to favor that fan more. Did you find anything that was shocking or really interesting, or was it all pretty much right in line with that?
I mean, for example, Joel Freeman is preferred by Dynamic Discs fans compared to Innova fans.
There you go. Wow.
Paige Pierce is preferred by MVP fans over Discraft fans. There's some interesting statistics along the way where we can see that, but you can also see some players don't really connect with their fans. Like Corey Ellis wins the European Open, and Discraft fans barely like him more than the average fan. So he didn't seem to connect with them in that way.
So what you just shared was exactly what I was asking for, which I find very interesting. The reasoning, groups of people, tour friends, all that kind of stuff, the fans that are connected to, that's really interesting to find those players. Obviously, Josh and Ben, anything that stands out to you, feel free to jump in here. I think I want to go back real quick, and we can move into a next topic here, how maybe that stuff relates, but Joel Freeman made a post recently. I don't know if you saw it, but it wasn't quite about likability, but if I had to summarize it all in one, it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to work harder at being more likable. Now, again, that's not his reason. That's not all that stuff. He didn't say that. But I do find it really compelling that, the survey showed that he already had been working on it, but like, it just must have been one of those, I made it onto a survey and I'm third from the bottom. So I think this survey is going to serve really cool purposes, if not only for people that talk disc golf like us, but I think also for players and their brands. I think if I was a player, I'd be looking for this survey next year to see where I landed on the survey. So before we move on from that topic, Josh or Ben, any thoughts on correlation between plastic and companies, or pretty straightforward?
Yeah, I just thanks, Jesse, for sharing it. I'm looking at that chart on my screen right now as well, and it raises lots of questions. But we're not going to go player by player with you. So thanks for sharing the data. I mean, in general, this is an obvious statement, which I think you acknowledge as well. But it's kind of like, yeah, what's influencing what here, right? That's actually the question for the players and the manufacturers to think about and say, go to a name you mentioned. So for Corey Ellis, why in the world is our Prodigy or fans of Prodigy rating them higher, right? Like, what is it about that? That's the question. Is there a history, right? Did that person used to throw Prodigy? Are they on tour with somebody? Like you said, media presence, those are the things. So when you look at like Eagle, yeah, it's like, all right, so MVP fans rate him higher than Innova fans. But if Innova signs him, does that likely change like within weeks? Probably, but that's an interesting bet for a manufacturer to be certain. What's behind that number, right? Like, make sure there's not something else that's a gotcha that we're always swimming upstream with that player because for some reason their brand does not resonate with our brand. So I think it's pretty cool.
We have a lot to learn. I mean, this is the first time we've done that kind of study. And over the years, I hope we'll learn more and we'll better analyze the why behind those numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do like it. See, this is what the numbers allow you to do, is have these conversations, which, Josh, you bring that point up. It is interesting because now manufacturers start looking at this and go, oh, it'd be a great fit. And then they find out, like you said, Josh, a gotcha maybe. So I found that really interesting. Any other final interesting thoughts with that topic? You mentioned Paige, you mentioned Joel Freeman. Is there anything else that stands out, or is that kind of wrap that one up?
Well, we can just a quick point is the Prodigy players really jump off the page if you look at that matrix and the table. So you can see that they score much higher above average with Prodigy fans than they do with the general public compared to other players' relationship with fans of their brand.
Interesting. There you go. See, there's another one. You're dropping all these nuggets, and my speculative brain immediately goes to all the, I guess I can't say all the bad PR. They won a world championship this year, thanks to Isaac, but it was a pretty negative time for them this year in a lot of ways, the undertone at least, or in some cases the overtone. And I perceived, as a fan of disc golf, Prodigy street team and Prodigy players that are really diehard for this, where I felt like trying to compensate in a lot of ways for being overly positive. Like, this is like fantastic, like trying to help. And so maybe that's a little bit of what we saw there in the survey. They're like, I'm going to make sure we give them all the love. Maybe it was an overreaction. I don't know. I love talking about this stuff, though. Thanks for sharing that one.
That's a reasonable conclusion.
Oh, well, thank you, Jesse. I'm sure you had it before me, but there you go. So anything else before we move on? The other topics that you want to talk about with this? I can go through it, but I'm sure you have something laid out in front of you as well.
We've got a lot of articles, so we can move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's what I'm
this
thinking.
Article, I didn't write. This is by Josiah Zuzma, sorry, and he is one of the partners on the program. He's a developmental neuroscientist, and he's here in Philadelphia. I think he's 960 rated. He's a solid disc golfer, and he's also a Statmando guy. And so Evan actually introduced him to me. So thanks to Evan for
what up, Evan? Apparently Evan's flying right now. That's why he's not on the show tonight. But there you
That'll
go.
do, my friends.
the button, hit the button, Ben. It's there.
That'll do, my friends.
Perfect. Now Evan's here. All right, go ahead and give it to us, Jesse. This sounds interesting.
So one of the questions we asked on the survey was roughly how many discs do you own?
Oh,
boy. I guess if you haven't read seen this table or don't have it in front of you, this chart, any guesses at what percentage of fans have more than 500 discs?
Ooh, this is a game.
I'm already cheating. I'm looking at the article.
What? Okay, so Josh can't answer. Ben, did you see this article?
I have not.
Okay, so this is out of 3,000 respondents. Can you tell us how many of the respondents answered this question? All of them?
We had
close.
I don't have the sample size, but yet close to 3,000.
All right, let's just say close. Let's just say close to 3,000 or whatever.
We're just getting percentage.
Yep. Yeah, I guess I was doing percentage, but in my head also I'm thinking that's how many people might that actually be. But I would say, this is sad in some ways. 20% of people.
I'm gonna go with 5% because 500 is a lot.
Yeah, you win, Ben. It's 4.4%.
Yes.
I went so high.
It's not that sad, but I mean, it would be great for the industry. What we found, the highest percent was 26 to 50 discs are owned by 19.2% of our respondents, and then kind of and that's roughly a bag of discs plus an extra set. And like the highest numbers are in 51 to 75 discs, 76 to 100 discs. That's kind of, and then 101 to 150. So that's kind of where most people are, somewhere between 26 and 150 discs.
What about, where do I land in there? I think if I had to count, we're probably at like 350, somewhere in that range. Where does that fall? I'm a small percentage too, I'm sure.
4.1%. But you're in the top 10% of disc owners.
And I want to be clear, like, I'm not a massive disc collector. I do have a significant amount that I have collected myself, but reality is my 2 kids play for Team Minifun. They get a 50 disc allotment each every year. And so between that, anyways, long story short is, yeah, people have lots of discs. If we ask Terry Miller over Smashbox, he probably is in the top 0.5% plus others. There's others out there, John Kirkland and all these disc golf collectors, but they have full garages full of these storage containers. So anyways, that's not where the survey was going, but what stood out to you interesting about this? Anything specific beyond like, hey, 500 plus discs is a very small percentage of people? Anything else that relates to it?
Well, one of the other questions we asked is how many discs did you purchase within the past 12 months as kind of a for yourself? So this is not if you're a reseller or anything like that. So that was a follow-up, and we could do another trivia question. What percent of respondents had 31 plus, bought 31 or more discs?
Oh, you're asking that question. What
I'm asking that question.
Well, what's interesting is your largest group, when they answered, it sounded to me it was almost like a bag of discs, like as in it was like their disc golf bag, because I think the numbers you had were like right in that range, and maybe they had a couple extras. So it would make me think this is a pretty small percentage of people that are buying 30 discs, because if that was the case, the numbers would be skewed differently. I'm getting off topic or off track here. I'm going to say it's a low percentage of people that are buying 30 a year, and go down and say it's probably 8%. It's probably a little lower than that. Ben, what do you think?
I am working on.
Put yourself up on screen.
So I'm working behind the scenes to try and put us all 4 up, because we don't have a scene for that. So I'm gonna have to pass on this one. So I'm hard at work.
No.
Trying to make a 4 up.
It's fine.
It's
don't worry about the 4 up
That's the
scenes.
answer.
I was going to guess 16.38%, but
And you would be
Ben,
right on.
Ben,
I'm
It's
cheating.
60%.
Sorry to sidetrack there, Ben. That's probably too much to do right now, honestly, and it's going to create more work for me later.
Okay,
too.
sorry.
You're good.
Because we didn't
You're
have
good-
4
you're
up,
good
so I'm like
cycling it.
grinding to try and get that done. But it's all good.
You're good. You're good cycling. A few things are up in the air for this week. That's why we said we're test driving a lot of this. We'll get ready for the full season kickoff come February. So what's the number there, Jesse?
It was 16%.
Oh, 16. Man, see, I underdo that one, but I just found it interesting that I think you said almost 20% said they had less discs than that. But when it comes down to everybody buying discs, 30 a year is, wow, that's a number. That's
quite a few discs a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is.
I know it's 31 plus. Let's just make the math easy and say it's 36, which, it could be way higher than that, right? But that's 3 a month.
So good.
I was just going to say what would be interesting, and I don't need to tell you. You guys are all coming up with, these questions. But what would be interesting is to see how long has this player been playing for? Because I know for a fact when I started, my first 5 years or 8 years were way higher with the amount of discs I purchased. And it tapered off pretty quickly at a certain point when you're like, I found...
Oh.
And it is what it is. So I don't know. I've cut somebody else off when I answered
Well, you
that.
broke up there. You broke up there.
Oh, I broke up?
Yeah, we
it
heard
was like-
most of you, but you got a little robot voice for a minute.
No, I'm sorry. I'm on the hotel Wi-Fi. All I'm trying to say is it'd be interesting to see how long they play. For someone like me, I ultimately came to decide, here's my bag. It is what it is. I'm not really changing it, so.
We could calculate that. We didn't ask people when they started playing disc golf in the survey. We asked people how long they've been following professional disc golf. We're going to add that question next year. But one thing we did do is look to see if there was a correlation between how often somebody plays and how many discs they buy. And there's a direct correlation. It's crystal clear. For example, in our survey, 40.44% of people who play daily buy 31 or more discs a year.
Correlating to number of discs lost.
Yes, I'm sure it does too. I mean, if we cross-reference this with like PDGA number and where lakes are on your courses,
rating and which course, and next thing you know, it's like, oh,
this is awesome. My immediate
buying discs.
Yeah, I know, it's awesome. I love this stuff. like, so Marshall Street Disc Golf, free advertising for them there, but they have a course at their pro shop. Marshall Street for a long time was one of the biggest, best, and still probably are the biggest in a lot of ways. 978 is local to us as well, and 978 is where I go for my discs. Marshall Street has a disc golf course there. And you got to believe that is a massive win, just hearing what you're saying. I'm going to play around. I'm going to buy a disc. So there you go. Get your pro shops at the course.
I think one of the headline numbers from this article that's been quoted a couple places is, within the past 12 months, have you purchased a touring Signature Series disc for any of these players? So we asked basically, which players' discs are you buying? And so we have what percentage of people do you think bought a Simon Lizotte disc of our respondents?
33 is what I would guess.
Yeah, it's got to be super high. I'll give it similar number to Ben, but I'll just outdo him by 34.
40.15%. So basically just over 40%.
The $1 vote. Price is right. I got you, Ben.
And who do you think would be in second place?
Macbeth. Just because
that's a tough.
Well,
tough
so Jesse, we already told you. I don't think you were on the show when we had it. So I had this conversation how a lot of Macbeth sales, because I know he's up there and he kind of dropped on the Fandom score, has to do with because of his custom line that Discraft created for him. That even if you're not a fan of Macbeth, it's the only disc that, and you like say the Athena, it's still his disc, his quote unquote tour series. So you're gonna still buy the tour series disc even if you're not a fan of Macbeth. So I think that helps, pump those numbers up for Macbeth.
I think it's Macbeth, or again, I'm thinking back to some of the numbers we saw, like fan favorites, and then thinking of tour releases, like possibly Calvin.
So it's Macbeth. It's 26.35%. Third is Calvin at 21.46%. Fourth is Kristen at 19.46%. Fifth is Eagle at 8.92%. And then after that, it kind of falls off. So 13.31% for Nate Sexton. Ricky Wysocki's 12.69%. And then Brody comes in at 12.5%. And then everybody else there is under 10%.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me right off the bat is that Kristen Tatar disc being, 20%? Because I don't know if they released much like of her tour. Doesn't she have like a grace and maybe like a commemorative thing? So that means a lot of people, maybe a Pure too, I think I've seen. That means a lot of people are supporting her with so little, I guess, tour series disc, which is really cool. That's just what I observed, and I could be completely wrong, but I think she only has like a grace and maybe 2 other discs, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Jesse, that number does not necessarily tell us who sold the most discs by volume, correct? So I think that's an important distinction too. That could be interesting. This tells us of people surveyed, whose discs did they buy the most of. I don't even think I worded that right, but anyway, right? Like that's an interesting thing to think about. We don't have true insight into those numbers, but to actually say if Lizotte's 40%, Macbeth is 26%, is it actually possible that Pure volume sales in 2023, when Simon announced a new sponsor, is it possible that he may be 3, 4, 5 times outselling Macbeth in 2023, or maybe not, right? Which would also be just as intriguing. So anyway,
yeah, certainly. Yeah, we don't have that kind of nuance. But what's good about this is we are kind of getting a sense, because with the manufacturers, they often know how much they sell, but they don't know how much the other manufacturers sold, because it's a black box in terms of what's being sold, because a lot of the companies keep their data private. So this does give you a sense, but you're absolutely right. Especially players like Simon and Paul who have whole lines, they're probably going to sell more volume because they've got lots of molds. One thing that Josiah did as well is he put in a chart here, which is percent, and this might be hard to get your head around, percentage of respondents that purchased a Tour Series / Signature Series disc in the past 12 months after rating the player a 10 on the Fandom score. So in other words, you're a big fan of this player, big enough that you gave them a 10, the highest score that you can give a player. What percentage of those fans actually bought the discs? And so this can give us a little bit a better sense of fan intensity. And for that one, Paul actually beat out Simon. So Paul, 47% of people who gave Paul a 10 on the survey also bought one of his discs, whereas Simon was 46.93%. They're essentially the same numbers, but they're very similar there in terms of people giving them 10s and actually buying their discs. But Eagle was at 40% of people who gave Eagle a 10 actually bought his disc. And there's a bunch of other players that really pop up here that we didn't see on the just pure volume of fans who are having disc sales from people who are their fans.
Okay.
So if I'm a manufacturer, this is the kind of number I'm actually curious to watch, because it's likely that these people who are rating a player are going to follow their player. If they're rating them a 10, right, and your favorite player leaves Discraft and goes to Innova, but they were your favorite player, I think I'm speculating, but there's a likely chance that you're going to continue to follow that player. You didn't rate him a 5, you rated him a 10. You like him, you're going to follow him. And if you say, yeah, and because I rated him a 10, half of everybody who likes this player is going to follow and buy one of your Tour Series discs, versus if I move, I don't know, I don't want to pick a name, somebody way further down the line, right? If I move, if Kevin Jones comes over, even people who love Kevin Jones, only 12% of the people are buying their discs. We already know some of this intuitively, but the numbers do start to put some meat to the bones. This is when people say all the time, Eagle moves discs. Ricky moves discs, right? We were talking earlier about brand and all this. Like, does Gannon Burr move discs?
Not yet.
That can change, but like, that's an interesting point. That's why it's more of a bet. Whereas if you get Eagle now, you're going to say, yeah, like 40% of his top fans are going to buy a disc, and then there's probably some residual effect for all those other people who also buy discs, 30 times a year, right? I don't know, just interesting.
Yeah.
Well, in general, if you look at the prodigy players, they don't really move discs. And that's kind of interesting. Gannon Burr, 5.15% of respondents bought one of his discs in the last 12 months. Isaac Robinson, 4.38%. So, more people are buying Greg Barsby discs, buying Jeremy Colling discs, buying Kyle Klein discs, buying Paul Ulibarri discs than them. So that's kind of interesting that the they're probably top 3 players this year, and they're not moving as many discs as some players who are didn't play as well as they have this season.
This goes back to what we were talking about right before you got on. In some ways, was like, there's players on teams right now that are purely on the team because they were marketable and brandable, but they weren't winning per se. And like, I know there's been discussions about how good Paul Ulibarri has been over the years. He obviously is an incredible disc golfer, but as far as when it comes to the tour, like, he's not standing out. Fantastic. When I say standing out, I'm talking about like top 4, top 5, like winning, like what you kind of have to do on tour now to stand out and get your disc sales going up, especially if you're not a likable player. But Paul's selling discs, it sounds like, because he's brandable. He's been a figure. People like him. He's been in Jomez coverage so much. That's a whole nother thing kind of now, unless there's something more to go on over this conversation moving into media. What did you come up with in media? You wrote an article about that and how it relates maybe to fans.
Yeah, so I wrote this article, and the article starts off with the DGN commentator appearances in 2023. So we can get a sense of how often these people are getting booth assignments to either be on color or on play-by-play, and we divide those up. And we divided it between MPO and FPO. We divided it between majors, playoff elite, / elite plus events, and silver events, so you can get a sense of the importance of the event. So we have all that data there. And then we also have fandom scores for each of the commentators. So we asked, again, our respondents, on a 0 to 10 scale, how do you feel about the work of these commentators? Not about them as a person, about their work in the booth. And can you guess the top three? And this is both. We've got both Jomez and DGN commentators. Those were the only people we included. Both FPO and MPO, Jomez and DGN.
And you're saying the most appearances?
No, sorry. Who are the well? We could do that if you want. Who do you think had the most FPO appearances for a commentator?
Valerie Jenkins.
No, it wasn't Val. She had 9 total appearances.
She had a baby.
Oh, so right. You said Jomez included. Then my brain obviously.
Oh, no, sorry. For this one, just DGN.
Oh, just DGN.
Let's just talk about live.
Wow. Zoe.
It was Zoe. Zoe had 16 appearances as in the booth for FPO, and only one of those was a silver. Most of those were elite. She was actually in the booth for all 5 majors, or if we can't throw pink as a major, which it is, then all 5 majors. So Zoe had a lot of booth appearances. The most booth appearances was Terry Miller, and because he does both MPO and FPO. Same thing with Ian Anderson. He's second because again both MPO and FPO. The
so
least
now you said the question that you originally asked that I didn't answer.
Yeah, sure.
Was it favorite?
Yeah. So the fandom scores. Which 3 commentators had the highest fandom scores? And we're including Jomez and DGN.
And this is not FPO, MPO specific. It's just the top 3.
Top 3, both MPO and FPO.
Because in some cases we have males commentating, female. So yes, it's just favorite 3. I'm gonna give Nate Sexton has got to be really high.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. Nate Sexton. I feel like Terry Miller. And it's either Big Germ or Yuli. I'm going to go with Yuli. Those are my top 3. Do you have any differences in there, Ben or Josh?
Yeah. I was gonna say, since he specified Jomez, I was just gonna do the Jomez guys. I was gonna say Nate, Coling, and Yuli. That would be my 3, since Jomez still has a lot of pull for fans. Josh?
So
nothing.
Josh,
I want to hear what Jesse has to say.
Do you have it in front of you, Josh?
I do.
Are you seeing or do you want to guess?
Okay. Josh is the researcher. Let's go.
So Nate Sexton was number 1. So we have 2 different ways of looking at commentator scores. We've got the raw commentator average fandom score. So that's, again, 0 to 10. We also took away the 5s as another way of looking at this, because a lot of the FPO commentators were getting 5s because some people don't watch FPO. They didn't have an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave them a 5, a neutral answer, instead of not giving them an answer, which is what we instructed them to do. So we took out the 5s for all the commentators because that kind of normalizes the numbers a little bit better there. But still, it's Nate Sexton number 1, Brian Earhart's number 2.
Oh, cool.
And Jeremy Coling's number 3. Number 4 was Madison Walker, and number 5 was Paul Ulibarri.
Wow.
And then Erica was number 6. So of the top commentators, only Brian Earhart is not a Jomez person.
That's a great point.
And I have a few reactions to that. And this, again, would be interesting for future versions of this. And maybe you did this. Like, age of player, length of time in the sport. Like, again, just as like an interest, because like, shout out to Terry. I mean, he's been a staple in disc golf. I knew him with his first little flip vlog camera back when he first started it, like before he was doing anything. Like, but I've seen him till now, and for what it's worth, I enjoy and think he's a level-headed, decent commentator. I put him up higher, and that's interesting to see.
He's
I
just
knew
below Erica.
Yeah, and what was that, 7th?
1, 2,
out
3,
of like 8,
4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, he's number 7. No, there's a lot more people. Then next is Charlie Eisenhood.
Okay.
Then there's Philo. Then Nate Perkins. Then Juliana Korver. Then Ian Anderson. So again, these are people towards the bottom. Ian Anderson, Valerie Jenkins, Grant Zellner, who just did silver. Zoe Andyke, and then Nate Doss had the lowest fans.
What? So this is super interesting to me because evaluating this, I'm not going to do it right now live, but can you objectively look at somebody's commentary? I think this is the bigger picture. Can you objectively just look at commentary and say, good job, bad job, as if you were in school, like a teacher was just grading you? Or is this very, very largely driven off of, do I like that person's personality? Do I like what they wear, how they look, right? Because I feel like, and call me crazy, we all have, this is just going to illustrate it even more for everybody. We all have our favorites. I personally think Charlie does a pretty good job at what he does. He's not color. He's play-by-play in most cases, and I think he does a good job at what he does. Terry Miller does a good job. Nate Doss, the insights he gives, he's kind of like the Tony Romo of NFL in my mind. Like, I love his insights. The same with Nate Sexton, but this goes back to the players winning and being likable, right? That was like the perfect blend to make a lot of money in disc golf. And I feel like Nate Sexton is very likable and he commentates very well. When it comes to commentary, that's the magic sauce right there. And that's why he's at number one. So I give him number one too. I love what Nate does on the mic. But I'm just surprised to see some of these lower than others. Anyways, any other reactions, Josh, Ben?
Yeah, I have a reaction right off the bat. I think this is a good point to prove just like a testament on how post commentary is still very important, because I can imagine a lot of these people are still tuning into Jomez. Not everyone's saying live is the new way, everyone has to go live, but a majority of these people that might have been taking the survey might not have that access to DGN, so their only experience is a free Jomez announcer that they know and love, which I think is a cool little testament to show that like Jomez is still a very important part of the sport and is still not going anywhere.
But Ben, they weren't supposed to vote unless they knew and listened to. They weren't supposed to vote unless they knew and listened to this commentator. So I don't think, to your point, Ben, it could be this, but I don't think it's quantity of how much I've listened to a commentator being how much I like them.
Yeah, I get, yeah, I can see that point too. But I think if you're mostly watching Jomez, you're gonna like them better, in my opinion, than maybe someone. And you can't always like people, like you said, like I don't know. I just think if you're watching Jomez, you're gonna like the people better, and you're gonna vote for them higher rather than if you don't watch as much DGN.
If it's based off of quantity that we're listening, the length of live is extremely long, and the amount you would hear Nate Doss is more than anybody every single time. So what your point is maybe is that people aren't watching live, but I don't know. I mean, the numbers do show that.
No, I think people are watching live. I just think that we are underestimating the amount of people that still watch Jomez as their primary thing. And I think that is either Jomez just has great commentators and that proves to it, or people watch a lot more Jomez than live and enjoy Jomez more.
There we go.
I'm just giving
analysis on money for everybody.
Yeah, tell us, Jesse.
So 25% of our respondents don't subscribe to DGN. So 75% do.
Okay.
So that is probably part of the equation. And so I was very interested. I thought about, well, why are all these Jomez commentators scoring better? So a couple of my theories. One is that they're closer to the sport right now. These are either active players or until recently active players. So actually they're all active players. Sorry, the Jomez commentators. So that might give them more validity in the fans, in the eyes of the
That's a good point.
of the respondents. I'd say part of it also is that it might be easier to be a post-produced commentator than a live commentator. You don't have somebody in your ear telling you what's, that we're switching to camera 2 or switching to camera 3, and you don't have to ad lib as you're waiting for, a slow putter to putt or a rain delay. So I think they're less exposed, the live commentators. And they also have more room to be funny, maybe. But there also could be just a talent gap in that Jomez can pick from all players, whereas DGN can only pick retired players. And so that might create a talent gap between the two. So I don't really know what the answer is, but those are some of
those are great points.
Interesting, Jesse. This might be new information to me, and I've never asked. Is that something that's true? DGN has made a stance that they won't pick current players. Oh, okay. I'm going to be called out here because it's live. But with that being, now that I just had that epiphany moment, like they could do FPO or MPO commentating either way, but that's probably much more small. So yeah, okay. I stand.
They've got to play.
At least
That's the thing. They have to play so that they can't commentate unless you're Nate Sexton and you're playing some events and commentating on other events.
Okay.
So one of the other things that I found really interesting was, you look at, so we know how often the DGN commentators were used, and we know what our respondents think of them. And the least often used commentator was Nate Sexton, who's also the most popular commentator. The least popular female commentator was Zoe Endike, who was the most used female commentator. The most often used commentators, for play-by-play were Ian Anderson, who wasn't particularly popular, and Terry Miller, who was very popular, as well as Nate Doss, who was not popular. So I guess this is to say we have some data that could be useful for DGN to decide who to give booth assignments to, who to assign to majors, who to assign to the more important events. And I don't know if they're going to use this. I don't know if this is too late for them to make decisions. I'm sure they've got a lot of ways they have to make decisions, but at least this is some data that they could use if they wanted to.
I liked your point where you're saying how, like, yeah, live's a different product, like how it's like 4 hours and you have to fill, because we have a live show here and not everything goes daisy and roses. So I think that's a great point to bring up. Objectively, just looking at post versus live, that they have a lot more to say, because like Matt and I have always talked about it, like the more you talk on anything, the more opinions people are going to have on you, and like you either like you way more or like you way less. It's just the nature of the game.
It's true. In fact, Josh is playing his cards right for the last 20 minutes. Just quiet. He's like, now let's do the survey. Favorite host on Staggered Stance.
Oh yeah.
So we shouldn't do. We've already had people rate us in the comments before. They're like, there's 4 hosts. We're going to rate everybody 1 through 4. And then they get to me and they're like 10. And I'm like, what? It's only 4. And then, like we say, it often seems like the more you talk, the more you're on, the more opinions people can have about you. Like if I stay quiet, people can't have as many opinions about me, negative or positive, but which makes for a boring show. All right. We kind of came down to the end of that. I think that's really interesting. I don't want to talk the whole article. People need to go check them out and dig into them deeper. I think that's really a benefit of what you guys have done over there, writing and posting the way you have. They can find those over at Ultiworld Disc Golf. They could probably Google this and find it. They can say Fandom manufacturers, Fandom disc, whatever. You can probably find them.
We have another article coming out tomorrow. This is by Douglas Tyus, also known as Disc Golf Doug on Twitter, and it's on the favorite courses. So before I go, what do you think was the top 3 courses on course?
Who did they? This was the 3,000 fans.
This is 3,000 fans, but we asked them to only pick up. We asked them to pick three courses that were on tour in 2023. We gave them a whole list to choose from, and so they could only pick 3. But a lot of people picked more, so we didn't include their data in the survey. So the people that could actually follow the instructions, we had 2,030 of them.
Okay.
Follow the instructions.
So it's purely based off of it. In some cases, people, survey fans may have played these courses, but it was purely based off of just favorite, as in maybe they like watching it.
To watch. We specifically said which DGPT and major courses are your favorites to watch.
Ooh. USDGC, maybe. Preserve. I'm throwing a few out there. Portland. Those are my top 3. I don't know if that's accurate, of course. Josh or Ben?
Smuggler's Notch, Portland, USDGC.
So yeah, I'm pretty similar. I'm gonna go Maple Hill, Smuggler's Notch, and Portland. Those are my top 3.
The top one by far was Maple Hill. 65% of respondents put that in their top 3 courses.
I just Quick. I love Maple Hill. I think it's in the number 1 spot. I think it could bounce between the top 3. It gets a lot of credit for its legacy and history, the nostalgia. Everything about being there is great. But I did not think that'd be in people's favorite to watch. A lot because there's a lot of wooded stuff, but maybe I know people like that. Maybe it's just translating so much better with the better crews nowadays. Like, it's just translating how awesome it is.
Well,
That's awesome to hear.
I think it's also because the hype around Maple Hill. It's the number 1 course in the world. People are going to be more biased because of that hype where it's like, oh, Maple Hill's yeah, I like enjoying that, watching that course. It's enjoyable, and it's the number 1 course in the world. So, yeah, I'm going to put it up there. I think that has a huge part of it.
Holes.
Say it again?
There's lots of iconic holes in there.
Yeah.
So as a fan, it's like very memorable.
That's a good point, too.
Second was W.R. Jackson at 23.9%. So less than half,
the woods.
Almost a third of Maple Hill is W.R. Jackson. And then after that, it's Northwood Black.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting.
And you'll see that in terms of the popularity, the wooded courses are almost all on the top. The golf courses are almost all on the bottom, and the open courses are somewhere in the middle. So fans definitely have a preference in terms of what kind of courses they want to watch on tour.
So it's funny, after now having this simple conversation, you providing the details here, I fully agree. Like, my preference is to watch wooded courses as long as they film well. Like, I can imagine some wooded courses just in my head that don't, but like, people are now designing courses with that in mind, and we love seeing shot shapes. It's come a long way, and I agree. It's much nicer to watch a disc fly through the woods on a perfect shot shape. Josh, do you have a preference? You said open courses too.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having to think about it. I just, for some reason, certain wooded courses are coming to mind, and I'm like, the coverage is the hard part of it. Like, I say, like Waco, for example. Like, when they get to that second half of that course and they're all in the woods, like, everything just looks like the camera spins around. It's just woods and brush, woods and brush. So that was like my immediate gut, but I've got obviously I love wooded disc golf. So when you see the pros like pipe a lane in the woods, like on some of those Maple Hill holes, that's like unbelievably awesome to watch. So I'd have to think about it.
Well, the numbers show us, but I would assume we could be right in line with them, or we could just be different. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just think the aesthetics, right, were part of it in my initial answer. I wasn't actually thinking as much watching like how the pros tackle the course. I mean, that's important too, but that to me, I was kind of compartmentalizing that. I'm thinking like the drone flyer over at like, Smuggler's Notch, Fox Meadows. I'm just like, that's the stuff that, you want to show your non-disc golf fans and be like, check out these courses. So that's where I was originally thinking. That's why Portland makes the list. Right?
Yep.
Not because I'm even thinking about how the course plays. I'm just like, every shot there is like green and gorgeous with giant trees, and it's beautiful.
Josh,
right?
It's pretty far down the list, Portland.
I know, which is intriguing. That's why I'm thinking there's a different way to answer this. They're thinking, how do I want to see the pros tackle these courses? And I want to see that on coverage.
Yeah, Josh, I was literally thinking the same. That's why Portland was my list. It was like the beautiful Douglas firs. That's literally why it was up there. I was just thinking purely aesthetic.
No, that it was in my. I honestly feel like and it's also a little bit skewed in my mind based off of players' preference of courses too, which you could interestingly find that out. Like, where does the players' preference lie with what the fans like to see? And maybe it's really different. I think that's very possible as well. That's interesting. So this is an article coming out when?
It's supposed to be coming out tomorrow, but if there's like huge player movement news, then they might delay it a little bit so it doesn't get buried. My Media's article came out like 10 minutes before the Natalie Ryan news dropped. So I think they're trying to make sure that the article doesn't get buried.
I could be wrong about this, but I don't expect it tomorrow, any big announcement. But then here we go. I'm probably jinxing it. But like, I would imagine if it was, it'd be Nicolas. And that's big, but that'd be my only maybe. And I think it's probably still going to be a little bit, but interesting. So people should check that out tomorrow. Jesse, we're glad you came on. When it comes to snow, where are you from, Jesse?
I'm in Philadelphia, so we might get some snow. We're probably going to get a lot of water, but I don't know if we're going to actually get
coming water. Did you get any snow with this last thing coming through?
Barely any.
No, okay.
We got like it melted pretty quickly.
Okay, so
wow.
I've seen it regularly every winter. People will post in the social media groups, wherever you are. This is for the people in the back. This is for the disc golfers. Everybody, PSA, do not play on tee pads if they're not shoveled. And every year, maybe I'm grumpy about it, but I think we're screaming it to the wrong people. Like, if you're in a Facebook group, if you're in a Reddit group for disc golf, if you're in any group specifically for disc golf, you are probably not, and maybe that's a huge probably an assumption on my part, you are probably not the ones throwing from the tee pads. And then people will go out and take a picture of footprints on the tee pads, post it in these groups, and say, if I find out who you are, like, I'm going to plaster you everywhere. And I'm just like, I think these are the wrong people, because if they knew, I don't think they would. Now, again, maybe that's just a very large assumption on my part. But Jesse, have you ever thrown from a snow-covered tee pad?
No.
No, he's like, I'm not that guy.
But in fairness, I don't play when it's cold out because I don't like playing when it's cold out. So I'm a fair weather disc golfer.
Can we add that question to the survey next year of like, are you the kind of player who throws from a snow-covered tee pad? Because now you've ruined it for everybody else. And we just want to be able to point our finger and say, we don't believe anything else you say in the survey. But no, in all seriousness, we just got a lot of snow up there. And I will say to those listening to our show, if you're in a snowy area, you probably already know this. So what I would recommend is, instead of going out and saying we're going to crucify people for doing it, like, if you see somebody doing it, educate them nicely. They're probably very new and they're like, this is a great activity. Like, come out and play. Like, long story short, I just like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I don't think it's our regular disc golfers who are doing it. And if that is you, just take a second guess and say, maybe I should throw from the side and let somebody shovel it easier after. But we appreciate having you on, Jesse. Any closing thoughts as we let you go?
No, we'll have one more article after this one, which is probably going to be some of the most interesting stuff, because Josiah is really digging into the numbers to try to find the gems that we didn't include in the other articles, things that didn't fit into the buckets of the subject matters we covered in each piece. So just keep an eye on that on Ultiworld.
All right. Well, we appreciate having you on, Jesse. As always, until I see you in person again, I'll give you a high five, handshake, fist bump. Peace out, man. Talk to you later. All right, everybody. We kept intern Ben busy.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm not used to being on screen as much, so like I'm still doing my old intern ways, which is like trying to check everything, check to check, respond, and sometimes not paying attention. But it's gonna get used to, so bear with me as I get used to this new position.
Do we need a new intern?
It's easier if you're in studio. So
but then it's hard. Okay, in all seriousness, it's hard. And this wasn't a topic we planned on talking, but it is, and you're saying it, Ben. It is actually hard to focus on producing a good show live.
Yeah.
And being a part of the conversation. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just I need a less type in the chat as much as I used to, because I'm like focused on the chat, and then you call me, I'm like, wait, what?
You're like, what are we even talking about? Anyways, not to point our finger at that. We are glad to have you. And I called you intern Ben 10 seconds ago, but that's because, like I said, in our hearts, you'll always be intern Ben. But Ben is officially a host on our show. As equal to any of us. Again, this coming week, you will hear from Evan, Nick, myself, Ben, Josh, and we plan to line up and have a fantastic guest. If you like Staggered Stance, formerly the Nick and Matt Show, you can expect to get the big interviews, the big storylines as they happen. So stay tuned. Mark it on your calendar. What's the date next week? The date is
15th.
January 15th.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so it's a holiday for some.
Perfect.
Mark it down.
Come back after a day of doing whatever you do on that holiday and relax at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hey, successful first Staggered Stance branded episode. Should we keep the numbering system? What do our fans think? What do you guys
Yeah,
think? Should we
as
keep
in
it?
episode 172.
Yeah,
Or do
we're
we
at
just go?
172. With the rebranding, should it be another number? Does the numbers speak to the legacy and the length of, the show, and it's just a different name now? I don't know. Let us know your thoughts. Josh, this is your official first full Staggered stance.
Yep.
We expect that you and Ben and Nick and different variations of us will lead the show. It won't always just be the regular two
I'm
or
excited
three.
for the Ben and Josh show one week. We'll have to
Yeah.
get that.
We'll bring
cooking
it.
up. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited. Shout out our official fans' names now is no longer Nick and Matters. It's the Staggies.
We have to vote on this.
Shout out
We
the
have to-
Staggies in the chat.
We're gonna have to vote on this. There's probably some reason not to use that, but let us know.
Answers.
So I don't think I messed up tonight, but I guarantee it's gonna happen because I've already in talking to like my wife and others, like I'll still go to say the Nick and Matt show, the Nick and Matt, like tonight, Nick, like it's. I figured fans will do that for a while too, and that's okay. I still think we come out with gear like throwback at some point, but be on the lookout because we are excited about different ways to brand this and to have your support. Disc Golf 978, they came up multiple times during this episode because we love 978. If you go to Disc Golf 978, you can check out with the code we love 978, get 5% off. They already have the lowest possible dollar amount and free shipping over $25. I don't know why you wouldn't use them. Support players like Paul Kranz, Casey White, all these other players there. Fantastic. We love 978.
And this
Josh, Ben, any other closing thoughts?
Disc Golf 978 will have a massive trailer at the Northeast Disc Golf Expo, which is happening in almost it's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. It's Saturday, Sunday, January 27th, 28th. We have 8 manufacturers so far. We got Discraft, Innova, MVP, Prodigy, ThoughtSpace, Clash Discs, Lone Star, and we even have a smaller manufacturer with Neptune Discs. So it's going to be.
Will we have Eagle's new manufacturer on site?
Hopefully. I definitely.
Gannon Burr's new manufacturer at the one and only Northeast Disc Golf Expo.
Ben, sometimes we on accident break news here. Remember, like the Chris Clemens?
Yeah.
Dude, didn't you post the other day that MVP is releasing a disc so big they won't even tell you what it is?
Correct. At the expo, an exclusive expo disc.
So hold on.
Dun, dun, dun.
Will Eagle McMahon, will that be his disc at your expo?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I wish I could say. They literally wouldn't tell me what they're dropping at my expo exclusively at the expo. So it's going to be huge. So if you want to get the expo, get exclusive discs. Other companies are going to be dropping some stuff. So that news is coming soon with the exclusive stuff.
There was a line for the opening last year. This year is going to be out of control.
Yeah, so the tickets are in the Staggered Stance bio, and so we can kind of mitigate that line. I'm going to be scanning everyone who ordered online like an hour to 30 minutes before, so I can get you all wristbanded up and then allow you to go in right at 10 a.m. to your favorite booth. Also,
Love it.
So last year, Josh was the panelist, or I don't know what to say, the hosted,
the MC.
The MC of the content creator panels. But this year, if he's here, we're going to do a Staggered Stance live podcast at the Northeast Disc Golf Expo. So if you want to hear a live podcast from Staggered Stance, it'll be Nick, Matt, hopefully Josh, hopefully Evan, maybe me. I can't guarantee that because I'll be running around. But
can we guarantee an appearance? Yeah, we can guarantee an appearance.
Yeah, you'll get an appearance.
Nick is actually flying back for this. I've caught drift of massive releases happening at your expo that people all around the world will only be able to get at your expo. So I'm hyped. I'm glad you said that. It was in my notes to ask you about the new updates coming with that. So I'm glad you told us about that.
Oh, and Brian Earhart, everyone's favorite announcer, will be there. And huge announcement coming hopefully this week of someone else who's going to be coming to the expo.
Ooh.
Huge.
Love it.
So
I'm getting excited.
I know it's a huge announcement. I'm very excited, and you'll have to wait and see who's coming.
Is it Nick Carl's cousin?
James will indeed be there. He'll be security. Nick Carl's cousin will indeed be there, but no, that is not the huge announcement.
Dude, I love how, in some way, at least for me, and if you're a super fan of the show, you've heard about Nick Carl's cousin a handful of times because Ben's brought it up. It just so happens that Ben's like extremely good friends with Nick Carl's cousin.
Yes.
But like he's like that character that never asked to be a character on our show. But like he's like, how do I put it? Like Jimmy Kimmel's Guillermo. Like we gotta bring on Nick Carl's cousin.
That's a good point. Just bring with Nick on the show, bring him in and just surprise him. Like
just like randomly.
Because we're getting his whole family tree. Like we talked about Marlene, his mom, and how she owns a salon. Like he's getting a little backstory in the Staggy Nation. So I'm excited about it. We got to get Nick Carl's cousin. Yo, Staggies, rise up. Tell me if you want Nick Carl's cousin.
Rise up. Okay.
Rise up like a stale cucumber. Come on now.
All right. Well,
stale cucumber. Sorry, guys. No,
we've got a little bit of post processing to do with this episode, just some things, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. We appreciate everybody. Next week will be a big one, and everyone after that as we ramp up and continue to improve all of our branding and streaming, everything else that goes with it by the beginning of the season. We appreciate everyone's support. Thanks so much for tuning in. Nick's not here. I don't know if he's gonna keep it, but we'll let him decide that.
He's a busy man.
He's a busy man. Till next week, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.
Wait, I think since Nick's not here, I think I need, and I'm a host, I think I need to start my own tradition. See you later.
You should have thought more about that. All right.
Dang it.
Have a good one.
Now I got to commit to it. Bye.